Ben Johnson doesn't want the Chicago Bears to trade Tyson Bagent, but now is the time to capitalize on his value and get the best possible draft pick they can in a trade.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. On the show today, we're going to hear from Bears head coach Ben Johnson about the prospect of trading backup quarterback Tyson Bagent, why he's not a huge fan of the idea, but he gets it and knows it might be what's best for this Bears football team. We'll also hear from Bears general manager Ryan Poles about the team's effort to try and get a couple of draft picks from the NFL for hiring away Ian Cunningham. The Bears believe they should get some draft picks. Ian Cunningham believes the Bears should get some draft picks. So everybody thinks the Bears should get some draft picks. They're still looking for an answer from the NFL as to why they haven't gotten the 2 third-round picks for that. We'll hear from both Cunningham and Poles about their views on the process and where that leaves things for the Bears. And then speaking of new jobs, new roles, we'll hear from Ben Johnson about new offensive coordinator Press Taylor and why he promoted Press Taylor from passing game coordinator to OC instead of any of the other assistant coaches or hiring someone from outside of the organization. I do want to thank you for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, live on site here in Indianapolis at the Indianapolis Convention Center. You get the beautiful sights and sounds of the escalators running behind me. Hopefully we don't get anything too loud or distracting going on in the background. But I do want to keep catching up on some of the things we've been learning all week long, talking to Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles. And the big one we didn't get a chance to talk about yesterday was backup quarterback Tyson Bagent. At least the Bears getting calls, listening to potential trade calls for the #2 QB. A fan favorite, someone who I think we've all enjoyed watching with the Bears when he's been out there in the preseason and, prior to the Ben Johnson era. He started a couple of games in injury relief of what Justin Fields at the time. There's a lot to really like about Tyson Bagent, and it's valuable to have a #2 quarterback like him. But Ryan Poles revealed that, teams have at least called and inquired about, what might it cost to trade for Tyson Bagent? Would the Bears be willing to give up Tyson Bagent for another team that might be more desperate at quarterback and see him as someone who could at least compete to start and maybe as a potential starting caliber quarterback in the NFL? Because Ben Johnson told us this week that he sees Tyson Bagent not only as a super valuable backup quarterback, but one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. Here's what the head coach said.
Calls on Tyson Bagent. What's that conversation like from your point of view? I know how much you guys like him.
No. I love Tyson. And that's one that kind of pulls at your heartstrings a little bit because he's someone that you care about so deeply, and he's a hell of a football player that at some point you want to see him have a chance to do it himself. And so, we'll always do what's best for our team and our organization. I do think there's a lot of merit to having a strong #2 quarterback, which he certainly fits that bill. I'm of the mind that he's probably one of the best 32 in the NFL. His preseason tape over the last few years has probably confirmed that, in my opinion. But if I took myself out of the equation, I want what's best for him. If he would like an opportunity to start, I certainly hope he can get that somewhere.
Ben.
So you could hear from Ben Johnson's muffled coughing no at the beginning of his answer that, sort of a joke, but not entirely, that he doesn't want to get rid of Tyson Bagent. He loves Tyson Bagent. He raves about Tyson Bagent more in a more glowing way and differently than I think most other players he even talks about on the roster. Like, there's a very strong connection and affinity between Johnson and Bagent. And, we can see all the reasons why keeping Bagent on the roster is valuable. To have a backup that you feel like you can trust behind Caleb Williams, that, heaven forbid, he has to miss some time here or there, that Bagent could come in and get the job done and keep things afloat until Caleb Williams comes back. And yet, I think this is the time the Bears should trade him. I think that it is going to be in the best the best interest of the franchise to trade Tyson Bagent as long as you're getting a good draft pick, right? You're not just eagerly sending him off for whatever 7th round pick some team is willing to give you. But if a team is willing to give you something anywhere close to a premium style of draft pick, this is the time to do it for a couple of reasons here. One, I don't know that Tyson Bagent's trade value is ever going to be much higher than it is now. Like, short of, him actually playing a bunch of extended time next season and playing well in that extended time, sure, but realistically, he's probably not going to see the field much at all next season, and then he'll be approaching potential free agency in the future, and then it's like, okay, you're going to get nothing for him if you let him walk. And we heard Ben Johnson talk about wanting to give him the opportunity to be a starting quarterback somewhere. That's part of this equation too, is doing right by your player. But I also think we tend to overrate the value of a backup quarterback, and that's something the Bears should take advantage of here. We do not know whether Tyson Bagent actually is one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the NFL. We don't know. If Tyson Bagent goes to another team to compete to start, we don't know if it's going to work out or not. We just haven't seen enough Tyson Bagent to know for sure whether he's a great quarterback, a good quarterback, an average quarterback, a below average quarterback, or a bad quarterback. We've seen plenty to like and plenty of flashes, but it's been small sample size, spot starts, backup roles, and preseason. And so I think the more Tyson Bagent plays, almost the less value he has, because what teams are buying in on is the unknown. It's this idea of, but he could be something great. And we've seen bits of it, but I think the more you play, the more you learn exactly what he is and isn't, and then the value becomes differently. But teams want to buy in on that promise of something better, and that's why I think the trade value is as high now as it's ever going to be. And then I think also we overrate the importance of a backup quarterback in the sense that, if the Bears need to go to their backup quarterback for an extended period of time, 4 to 6 plus weeks, they're probably screwed, right? You can't, even if Tyson Bagent is pretty good, you're not going to be able to totally salvage a season with a backup quarterback for an extended period of time. It's just not super realistic to keep the ship going at the same high level when you take out someone like Caleb Williams from the equation. Even if you replace him with if he's the best backup quarterback in football, it's still going to be a drop-off for your offense. And that's a season already that, you see it with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati and other places where it's you kind of just say, QB was hurt, so that season kind of goes out the window. You say, okay, that doesn't count or whatever because you didn't have QB1 out there. I'm not convinced that Tyson Bagent is going to alleviate any and all those concerns that you would have losing your potential starting caliber quarterback. And if it's just for a game or two, then it's not really that important. We've seen a bunch of backup quarterbacks around the NFL come in and get by for a game or two. It's not that hard to find a guy for a game or two to get you over the hump until your quarterback is back in action. So I just don't think it's super critical for the Bears to have Tyson Bagent on the roster. And I think teams are going to be willing to overpay a little bit for Tyson Bagent because they're desperate for quarterbacks. There aren't a lot of quarterback options out there, and he's still this young, unknown, untapped thing that some coach just has to fall in love with and say, I can unlock that, and I can get more out of Tyson Bagent and get this steel gem of a quarterback from Chicago. So I think as far as a trade compensation conversation goes, it's probably the type of thing that's a conditional draft pick where it's okay, it's a conditional, I don't know, 5th round pick. And then, if he's the week 1 starter for that team, it jumps up to a 4th round pick. And if he starts 10 games for them, it jumps up to a 3rd round pick. Something like that where it protects the new team that if they trade for him and he sucks, then they're not going to have wasted a super high draft pick. And it protects the Bears where if they trade him and he ends up being great for that team, that they can't just get, they're not going to get screwed by only getting a late round draft pick for him. So I think it's a good timing now to make the deal. It's going to suck. You have to replace him. He's a fun player, and sure, you're going to feel bad if he goes to another team and has a great career, but he's going to leave the Bears soon one way or the other. So trade him now while his value is the highest and get something for him as opposed to waiting a year or two, letting him leave in free agency. And sure, you hope to get a compensatory pick for him, but maybe you get something better in the trade than you would trying to game the compensatory pick formula. So that's why I think trading away Tyson Bagent now, I think, is the right time, or this offseason is the right time for the Chicago Bears. You want to get more draft picks and keep building this young team. You take an undrafted free agent, you turn him into a draft pick. That's a great return on investment. You're also trying to get some draft picks from the NFL for the Atlanta Falcons hiring away your assistant general manager, Ian Cunningham. It's been reported that the Bears aren't, but now Ryan Poles says they're challenging that. They're in contact with the league saying, hey, I think we are owed a couple third-round picks, and Ian Cunningham agrees with him. So we'll hear the Bears general manager and the new Falcons general manager talk through why they think the Bears should get these draft picks and what the next steps might be in this process next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. The skills, experience, and location you want, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute since I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by HomeChef. As we get deeper into the new year, a lot of people are just trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where HomeChef comes in. HomeChef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. Whether you want microwave quick meals, quick lunches, oven-ready trays, 30-minute recipes, family-sized meals, and a variety of dietary choices, HomeChef has you covered with everything pre-portioned, so there's less prep, less mess, and no wasted food. For a limited time, HomeChef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, plus free shipping and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to keep receiving the free dessert. So whether the Bears get a draft pick or not for Tyson Bagent right now, they are trying to get draft picks for general manager Ian Cunningham, who was hired away to the Atlanta Falcons from the Bears as assistant general manager. And that was the expectation all along, right? Was that under the current form of the Rooney Rule, when you hire away, when you are a team that has one of your executives hired to be a general manager for another team, and it's a person of color, in order to promote the development of executives of color, the league is willing to give you then 2 third-round picks as a reward or an incentive for having invested in that person of color and helped them ascend through their NFL careers. The same thing is true as if you have a coordinator hired to be a head coach. And we've seen teams like the San Francisco 49ers get extra draft picks doing this. The Rams have gotten draft picks doing this. I mean, it's been a valuable tool for successful teams, and also in some ways a valuable incentive to promote the status of executives and coaches of color in the NFL. Like it is having some sort of effect, except when the Bears have their assistant general manager hired to be the Atlanta Falcons general manager, and because the Atlanta Falcons named Matt Ryan their president of football operations, I don't remember what his exact title is, but essentially they've made Matt Ryan their top football executive, and he has quote-unquote final say or whatever over the roster, that in the eyes of the NFL, it's been reported that because Ian Cunningham is not their true top decision maker on the roster, like his title is general manager, but on the hierarchy, he's still below Matt Ryan from a football decision standpoint, that in the eyes of the NFL doesn't count as enough of a promotion to justify getting the 2 third-round picks to the Chicago Bears. And obviously, it's easy for Bears fans to feel slighted by that, but the Chicago Bears do too, and Ian Cunningham, the Falcons himself, also thinks the Bears do too. So let's hear both of these general managers. Let's start with Ian Cunningham from the Atlanta Falcons being asked about, hey, this whole thing, like, do you think the Bears should get a couple third-round picks? He definitely agrees and isn't really sure why they aren't.
And there seems to be some confusion about the Bears not getting compensatory picks for your hire. Can you weigh in on how you see that situation from your perspective?
Yeah, I haven't had much time to really dive into like the wording of it. It was always my interpretation that if the general manager gets hired, that team would receive 2 third-round picks. I'm the general manager. I was hired. I would think that they would get 2 third-round picks. I don't know the wording of it. That's just my perspective. Again, I wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for them giving me that job and helping me grow to get this job right now.
So clearly, Ian Cunningham thinks this is what the Bears should get. I mean, I think we can all recognize that it seems to be a very minor technicality that the NFL is seeing as the reason not to give the Chicago Bears these picks, but like that shouldn't be reason enough either. That like it sort of is disruptive to the spirit or the idea of the initiative, right? Like this wasn't like the Bears were specifically grooming Ian Cunningham so that they could get the draft picks. But if that's what the rule is, then they should get the draft picks. And that's part of the process that Ryan Poles explained. It was just about a half hour after Ian Cunningham talked this week. Ryan Poles was asked the same kind of thing, and he also agrees, like, yes, we should be getting these draft picks. And to take it a step further, they haven't formally, there's careful language here, like they haven't, quote unquote, appealed to the NFL per se, but they have reached out to the NFL, at least seeking some kind of answer or communication or some kind of direction as to what actually is going on here. So here's how Ryan Poles described the situation.
It was our vision to climb through the ranks, get a seat, a GM seat, and then help the other one get to their position as well. So really happy for him. How we do that and why we do that has nothing to do with compensation whatsoever. I want to make that very clear. On the other side, there's a set of rules that were put in place that I think can be applied to this situation. So we've communicated through the right channels, so we'll see what happens as we move forward. I'm not sure. We'll just wait for a response. No one personally called me from the league, so.
Ian was just here and said that he thinks you should, and you think you should. So the Bears think you should, the Falcons think you should. It seems like.
Yeah. So it'll be up to the league and how this. We've had conversations.
What's your overall opinion of the rule itself? Just from your side?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I think it is a little strange. I mean, at the end of the day, you should want to develop your staff, regardless of the color of their skin. I think that's important. I think we take a lot of pride with the Bears on how we have our setup. And I take a lot of pride in that. So to be compensated for that's a little strange. I mean, I saw the Chiefs get a pick because of me, and then I watched that player go and play. It's just a little odd. But at the end of the day, if they think that's what's best to help incentivize, then that's what they wanted to do. But at the end of the day, like I said, that's not the purpose of why we develop our staff. But if that's the rule they have in place, then I think it's very clear in the situation what should happen. But we'll see what they think.
So what makes this tricky now is that, okay, Bears and Falcons believe Bears should get the draft picks from the NFL for this move. Bears are appealing, quote, not directly, but Bears are seeking from the NFL some answers here. But at what point, like, I don't want to say does it become too late, because you'll take them no matter when you can get them, but like it could be a little disruptive to this draft process right now. It's like you'd really like to know how many draft picks you're going to have and where you're going to have them. Like a big part of this process is that, like, you know, when the guy gets hired, that's, you know, most of these hires happen in January or at the very least like early February. But like now we are literally at the NFL scouting combine. Like, the Bears are going through this combine process expecting to be able to take one player in the first round, one in the second, one in the third, one in the fourth, one in the fifth, and two in the seventh. Like, those are their 7 draft picks right now. And if all of a sudden, when, next week, next month, is it, how long does this communication and appeals type of process go? And if in April, the NFL's like, all right, screw it, you guys get one more third-round pick, all of a sudden, like, that changes your approach to free agency. That changes your approach to the draft. Like, you go in the draft, you're going into free agency saying, okay, I've got 3 picks in the top 100. Those are 3 potential, I don't want to say 3 starting caliber players necessarily, but like you have a certain idea of how much you're going to be able to improve your roster in the draft. And so then you start to base some of your free agent decisions off of that. And then all of a sudden, if you add the ability to get another third-round pick this year, and then it'll be the 2 third-round picks are one in each of the next 2 years. It would be this year and next year. You would get the third-round picks. Then all of a sudden, okay, you're not complaining about getting this extra draft asset. It does change how you try and plan ahead. And the Bears are already scouting prospects, and you're working through your board saying, okay, well, if there's a guy who's maybe your current third-round pick would be too early for him, but he's not going to be there by your fourth. Like, it changes so much of this process to know or not know how many of these draft picks you're going to have. Plus, other teams are then trying to account for, okay, based on the Bears' needs, might they take this player before we're there? Well, if they have 2 third-round picks, that changes everything. And this is a top 100 pick. Like, it goes at the end of the compensatory picks at the end of the third round. Like, this is a premium player. I mean, I guess given Ryan Poles' history with third-round picks, maybe it's not going to be a game changer. If it's another Velus Jones, Karan Magaji, Zach Pickens type, then maybe this is all for naught. But I think the Bears are right to be trying to pursue whatever pathways they can to get these 2 third-round picks that they, by all accounts, seem to be owed, and everyone seems to agree that they should get them, except for now the NFL front office. I mean, but we shall see. It's part of the reward for being able to develop these guys and see them go off elsewhere. Certainly, the Bears saw that on the coaching staff as well, with Eric Bieniemy leaving to be the Chiefs offensive coordinator and Declan Doyle leaving to be the Ravens offensive coordinator. And so Ben Johnson replaces the offensive coordinator with an internal promotion of Press Taylor, someone who doesn't have a great reputation in the media, at least, just because of teams he's been a part of where things have gone poorly. Not that he's like a bad human being, but just maybe isn't always thought of as a great offensive coordinator. But Ben Johnson gave him a pretty strong endorsement down here in Indianapolis. So we'll hear why the head coach is a big believer in Press Taylor and promoted him to be the offensive coordinator over internal and external options next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? Well, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future bet, and you'll be automatically entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. Well, we've been down here in Indianapolis. I went to the Indiana Pacers game on Tuesday against the Philadelphia 76ers. They got smoked. I wouldn't bet on the last place Indiana Pacers having a bright future, but any of these future picks can not only win you cash for making the correct picks, but it could also send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks again for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and that's everywhere as well as we're down here in Indianapolis. Really appreciate, whether you're tuning in for the first time or the 500th time, you are why we do this podcast. If you want to take your listening to the next level, you can always check out the Locked On Bears Everydayers Club for access to an exclusive ad-free audio feed of Locked On Bears. It's compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the major podcasting apps, just without any of the ads. You'll also get access to a Locked On Bears group chat in the Locked On Everydayers Club Discord server just for listeners of this show. So if you want to find out more and check it out, the website to go to is lockedonbears.supercast.com. But as we talked about Ian Cunningham departing, Tyson Bagent potentially departing, and now we've got offensive coordinator Declan Doyle has departed. And we were all wondering who Ben Johnson was going to promote or who Ben Johnson was going to hire to be the new offensive coordinator. We found out a couple weeks ago it's Press Taylor, the Bears passing game coordinator, promoted internally. He was previously the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive coordinator, so obviously he has some experience with it, but things in Jacksonville did not go great, and he got a lot of the blame for it. I won't say all the blame. Certainly there's a lot of blame to go around there, and a lot of things went wrong beyond just the offensive coordinator, but like he didn't leave that with a super, super stellar reputation externally. But Ben Johnson brought him to Chicago and was big enough fan of him to bring him here in the first place, and then spent the whole season with him in Chicago and developed enough faith and confidence in him to say, this is the guy I want to be my offensive coordinator moving forward. And I didn't get rave reviews, but when you hear Ben Johnson talk a little bit about the changes on the coaching staff and the replacements he's made here, it's easy to grant him the benefit of the doubt and the understanding that like he's around these guys a lot more than we are and knows a hell of a lot more about coaching than we do. So I'm willing to hear him out on Press Taylor being, in his eyes, the best Bears option for offensive coordinator.
Ben, how difficult was it to pick an OC among the candidates that you had, particularly?
Say it again.
How difficult was it for you to pick an offensive coordinator among the candidates that you had on staff, and what drew you to Press Taylor?
Yeah, no, I think. Let me start by saying this. You lose two really good coaches in Eric Bieniemy and Declan Doyle. I can't say enough about either one of those two guys and the contributions that they made last year in their own way. I think we've been very, very much a proponent of wanting guys to move on, and if they find another role or another job that they feel like they want to take a shot at, then I'm all for it. And I think both those teams, both Kansas City and Baltimore, are getting two really phenomenal people and football coaches. But when it comes to replacing them, I felt strongly about Eric Stoodsville. He's a guy I've worked with in the past. I think he'll do a great job in our running back room and bring some different things to the table. For offensive coordinator, we went around and we interviewed outside of the building. Certainly we have a number of guys in the building that I feel very strongly about as well, not just Press. I think when you put together a staff, that's really what you want to do, is you want to see, hey, can I picture the young coaches becoming position coaches? Can I picture some of the position coaches becoming coordinators and then possibly even head coaches one day? And I believe we've got some guys that fit that mold on really both sides of the ball. And so I'm fortunate to have that on this staff. Press in particular was a guy that checked all the boxes of what I was looking for. He did a phenomenal job last year. He's very smart, very detailed, did some things behind the scenes that people probably don't realize, and yet I know he's got the respect of these players.
And what are the biggest things you need from your OC as a play caller? What do you want from your OC?
Well, I'm not in every single staff meeting. I'm not in every single offensive meeting with the players. I'm in as many of them that I can attend that time allows, and so it's just the understanding that nothing skips a beat when I have to leave the room. And Press has been there, he's done that. That's the good thing about it, and I hold him in really high regard. He's done a phenomenal job in the role last year as pass game coordinator, and I've got nothing but immense confidence that he'll do a great job here as a coordinator.
I would be a lot more concerned about the idea of Press Taylor as the offensive coordinator if he hadn't been here for a full season already. That not only, does Ben Johnson have a much longer chance of getting to know him and work with him, not just having heard about him in the past, but now actually have him with you in the building and working with you and building that familiarity, but then also maintaining some of that continuity for Caleb Williams as well. The play caller was never going to change, but even just having those guys in the room that you've just been around and they know you through the personality, you don't have to, get to know each other or anything. There's some real value to kind of just keeping the crew together and not shaking it up too much, even if it's just an outside OC and everybody else is the same. It's still a new person, a new voice, a new face in the room, and that having that continuity, I think, is going to be valuable. So I combine that with the benefit of the doubt and faith in Ben Johnson to make the right hire for his team, and also that, you heard him talk there about the offensive coordinator role and what he needs from it. He's not calling plays. He's not solely in charge of game planning or scouting opponents. He's a piece of a collaborative group and puzzle, and even if he might not be the best OC or whatever. Like, I don't think it's an influential enough position in this coaching staff specifically to, like, derail the offense and undo all the progress they made last season. So ultimately, I come away with just like a little bit more of that Ben Johnson reassurance of like, all right, he knows what he's doing, and at this point, like, we got to trust him. At the end of the day, he has earned that trust, and so we go forward with Press Taylor. I think the good news there is that he's not likely to get hired away to be a head coach anytime soon, so you're not looking at more turnover every offseason of a new coordinator having to come in. So that's, I guess, another slight silver lining or benefit in the back there. But, any and all changes that keep coming for this Bears team, whether they cut or trade Tremaine Edmunds, as is the news coming out that we talked about Tremaine Edmunds on yesterday's podcast, so we didn't want to do it all over again, but Bears are letting Tremaine Edmunds seek a trade. When and if that transaction happens, you can be sure we'll break it down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. Check out the Everydayers Club if you want access to that ad-free audio feed, or just keep tuning in the same way you always do. We're free and available on all platforms. We're not going anywhere. We just like to offer, more and different ways to tune in and be a part of the conversation. But no matter how and when and where and why you tune into Locked On Bears, we'll always make sure that each and every episode you leave with another opportunity to bear down.